You sing without thinking about it, maybe in the shower, maybe while driving, maybe to calm a baby or celebrate with friends. Singing feels so natural that it's easy to forget one incredible fact. There was a time when no human on Earth had ever sung a single note. So what changed? Why did ancient humans, surrounded by predators, hunger, and constant danger, spend precious energy making music instead of simply trying to survive? The answer begins hundreds of thousands of years ago, and it reveals something remarkable about your ancestors, your brain, and perhaps even why music still gives you goosebumps today. If you traveled back into the world of our ancient ancestors, you wouldn't find concert halls or instruments. You'd find endless grasslands, thick forests, icy valleys, and small groups of people whose survival depended on one another every single day. Life was dangerous. A failed hunt could mean starvation. A sudden storm could destroy shelter. Every decision mattered. At first glance, singing seems completely useless in a world like this. Making loud sounds could even attract predators. For a long time, many researchers assumed music appeared only after humans had solved the basic problems of survival. The thinking was simple. First came food, then shelter. Only later, once life became easier, did people create songs for entertainment. But that wasn't the whole story. Over the past few decades, archaeologists, anthropologists, and neuroscientists have uncovered evidence suggesting that music wasn't a luxury at all. It may have been one of the tools that helped our species survive. That raises an even bigger question. If singing helped ancient humans survive, what exactly was it doing? To answer that, we need to go back even further, before there were humans as we know them. Long before Homo sapiens appeared, our primate relatives were already using sound in remarkable ways. Modern gibbons perform elaborate duets with their mates. Howler monkeys produce calls that echo for miles through forests. Chimpanzees drum on tree roots, scream together during moments of excitement, and produce rhythmic vocalizations that strengthen social bonds. None of these animals sing like humans do, but they reveal something important. The building blocks of music existed long before the first human song. Evolution rarely invents entirely new abilities overnight. Instead, it reshapes older behaviors for new purposes. Scientists believe our ancestors inherited brains already capable of recognizing rhythm, changes in pitch, and emotional sounds. Those abilities probably helped identify danger, locate family members, or understand emotional signals within a group. But somewhere along our evolutionary journey, those simple calls began transforming into something much more powerful. Exactly when that happened remains one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Unlike stone tools or fossilized bones, songs don't leave behind physical evidence. A melody disappears the moment it's sung. So how can scientists study something that vanished hundreds of thousands of years ago? The answer comes from looking at clues left behind inside our own bodies. Compared to other primates, humans possess extraordinary control over breathing. Your lungs, diaphragm, tongue, lips, and vocal cords work together with incredible precision. Singing depends on that fine control. Researchers studying fossil skulls, neck anatomy, and the evolution of the human vocal tract believe these changes developed gradually, especially in species like Homo heidelbergensis and later Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Then genetics added another fascinating clue. A gene called FOXP2 plays an important role in speech and fine vocal control. Modern humans carry it, but surprisingly, so did Neanderthals. Ancient DNA recovered from Neanderthal fossils revealed they shared the same key version of this gene. That doesn't prove Neanderthals sang songs around campfires, but it does suggest they possessed much of the biological machinery needed for sophisticated vocal communication. And if they could produce complex sounds, what were those sounds used for? One possibility has fascinated scientists for years. Imagine 20 hunters moving through tall grass while stalking enormous prey. Speaking loudly would reveal their position. Remaining completely silent could cause confusion. Simple rhythmic sounds could coordinate movement without lengthy conversations. A shared rhythm helps people move together even today. Soldiers march in step. Rowers synchronize their strokes. Construction workers often develop rhythms while lifting heavy objects together. Experiments show that people who move or sing together cooperate more easily afterward. Their brains release chemicals such as endorphins that increase trust and social bonding. In other words, singing doesn't just sound pleasant, it changes how groups function. For ancient humans living in small communities, stronger cooperation could mean more successful hunts, better childcare, and greater survival. But cooperation may not have been singing's greatest gift. Consider one of the most fragile members of every prehistoric family. Babies. Human babies are unusual among mammals. They're born helpless and remain dependent for years. Keeping an infant calm while gathering food, making tools, or traveling long distances would have been a constant challenge. Across almost every culture on Earth, parents instinctively sing to babies. Even people with no musical training naturally soften their voices, slow their rhythm, and repeat gentle melodies. Scientists studying infant behavior found that babies often remain calm longer when hearing singing than ordinary speech. Songs hold their attention, reduce stress, and strengthen emotional bonds between caregiver and child. Now imagine mothers, fathers, grandparents, and older siblings doing this not thousands, but hundreds of thousands of years ago. A simple melody may have helped quiet a crying infant before dangerous predators noticed. The first lullabies may have protected lives. But another mystery remained. If singing helped families survive, why does music still make complete strangers feel connected today? To answer that, archaeologists turned toward one of humanity's oldest surviving instruments. In a cave in southern Germany, researchers uncovered carefully crafted flutes made from bird bones and mammoth ivory. They're around 40,000 years old. These aren't random hollow bones. They were intentionally shaped with finger holes placed to produce musical notes. Whoever made them invested valuable time, skill, and resources into creating music. Think about that for a moment. During the Ice Age, when every day demanded food, warmth, and safety, people still chose to make instruments. Music clearly mattered. But these flutes also reveal something deeper. By 40,000 years ago, singing alone was no longer enough. Humans wanted to create richer sounds, more complex melodies, and perhaps performances shared by entire communities. That suggests music had become woven into culture itself. Then, archaeologists noticed another surprising pattern. As humans spread across the world, nearly every society developed music independently. Some cultures favored drums, others preferred flutes, some built stringed instruments, others relied only on voices. The styles differed dramatically, yet every known human culture created music. That's incredibly rare. Languages vary enormously. Foods vary. Clothing varies. But music appears almost everywhere. Many scientists now argue that this universality isn't an accident. Instead, music may reflect something built deeply into the human brain through evolution. Brain imaging studies support that idea. When you hear meaningful music, multiple brain regions activate simultaneously. Areas responsible for memory, movement, emotion, reward, and prediction all become involved. Few experiences activate the brain so broadly. That's why a single song can instantly transport you back to childhood, remind you of someone you loved, or make thousands of strangers dance together without exchanging a single word. Your brain isn't simply listening, it's participating. But perhaps the greatest surprise comes from another branch of archaeology. For many years, researchers imagined prehistoric people as emotionally simple, concerned only with food and survival. Modern discoveries paint a very different picture. Neanderthals cared for injured family members who couldn't hunt. Early Homo sapiens buried their dead with care. Ancient communities decorated caves with breathtaking art. People wore beads, carved figurines, and painted their bodies. These weren't the actions of creatures focused only on staying alive. They were expressing identity, memory, belonging, and emotion. Music fits naturally into that picture. A song could celebrate a successful hunt, mourn someone who had died, welcome a newborn child, mark the changing seasons, or simply remind exhausted people that they weren't facing the darkness alone. No fossil can preserve the sound of those voices. But archaeology preserves the world they lived in. Picture a cold evening near the end of the last ice age. The hunt is over. Children gather close to the warmth of a fire. Shadows dance across the cave walls where painted animals seem to move in the flickering light. Someone begins with a single steady note. Another voice joins, then another. Soon, the entire group shares one rhythm. For a few precious moments, fear fades. The group breathes together, moves together, feels together. That experience may have strengthened something just as important as muscles or weapons. It strengthened community. And communities survive better than individuals ever could. Of course, scientists still debate exactly why singing first appeared. Some argue it evolved from communication between parents and infants. Others believe cooperation during hunting played the larger role. Some think sexual selection encouraged musical ability, much like birds attract mates with elaborate songs. The truth is that all of these forces may have worked together across hundreds of thousands of years. Evolution rarely follows a single path. One adaptation often finds many new purposes. What began as emotional calls between family members could eventually become ritual, storytelling, celebration, mourning, and art. Perhaps that's why music remains so powerful today. When you sing with friends at a birthday party, cheer inside a stadium, hum while working, or quietly comfort a child with a lullaby, you're participating in behaviors shaped by countless generations before you. The melody may be modern. The instinct is ancient. So the next time you catch yourself singing without even realizing it, remember that you're doing something far older than civilization, older than farming, older than cities, and perhaps even older than our own species. Long before humans built monuments or wrote history, your ancestors were discovering that a simple voice could do something extraordinary. It could turn frightened individuals into a family, strangers into a community, and survival into something worth celebrating. And maybe that's the real reason ancient humans started singing. Not because life became easy, but because life was difficult. In a world filled with danger and uncertainty, a shared song reminded people that they were never facing it alone. Once you see singing that way, it's no longer just music. It's one of the oldest echoes of what made us human.